Something I quite like about modern Doctor Who, specifically the early revival era, is the deliberate inclusion of series-long story arcs, often introduced quite early, and then subtly peppered throughout the background of various episodes until the Doctor and companion finally take notice and all is revealed. When done right, it would be an excellent way of keeping the viewer engaged with a mystery, eagerly waiting to see it pay off in a climactic finale. Bad Wolf, Vote Saxon, Rose in the background, and who could forget Silence Will Fall and the iconic Crack in the Wall. Again, when it's done right, it's incredibly effective, especially when the payoff is actually satisfying. Well, between you and me, I don't have the budget or creativity for anything as elaborate as that, so how about instead of a crack on the wall, you get a letter in front of the TV? What could possibly be inside? Ooh! It'll be a while till you find out, sorry.
We're in the 80s.
Hello and welcome back to any newcomers who found my channel thanks to my 5 Doctors review. I've noticed a couple of new faces popping up in comment sections under my previous Doctor Who review videos, so thank you very much for that. Today we're kicking off season 21 with the 130th serial, give or take. Wow. Warriors of the Deep is a 4-parter from January 1984 and stars Peter Davison as the 5th Doctor along with his companions Tegan and Turlough and Not Chameleon. For the first time in ages, since number 85, The Seeds of Doom if I recall correctly, I don't own this one on any form of media. I never bought the Fish People DVD box set and season 21 has yet to receive a Classic Collection Blu-ray, so I had to use alternate methods. But, unlike the first year or two of this review series where every time I came across a serial I didn't own on DVD or a missing episode that didn't have an animation yet, I would have to suffer through the dreadful Daily Motion website. I will never forget how much of a nightmare it was to get that thing working on my television, but I always managed somehow. However, a wee while ago now, can't remember exactly when, whether it was 2023, 4 or 5, but basically the entirety of classic Doctor Who is now just uploaded onto the Internet Archive. It's free, it's fast, it loads, it's easy to use, it's decent quality, and you can download the files if you want to. All of this with no ads. It would have been an absolute lifesaver if it was around back when I actually needed it. Ah well. It's a great service, and at least it's here now for the 1 or 2 stories I have left that I don't own in some form of physical media. Link in the description! It'll probably be gone one day. Okay, in case it wasn't obvious by now, I've never seen Warriors of the Deep before. This is my first time. The only thing I know about it, or the only thing I've ever seen about this serial, is an excerpt from either an interview or a commentary track where Peter Davison says something along the lines of, "It was difficult to keep up with the popularity of this iconic full-colour television show without having an increased budget. We were so limited by the budget and things just weren't paying off the way we envisioned them," while footage from this story played in the background. I might have seen it as part of a DVD extra on a different story. Maybe it was a behind the sofa segment. Heck, it could have just been in some random YouTube video I watched years ago. But I'm going off memory, and needless to say, I was going in with very managed expectations. So believe me when I tell you, when this started up, my initial reaction was, this shows promise. It literally begins with a reasonably elaborate sweeping camera shot through a big set, just full of people in unique costumes all moving around with purpose, then immediately cutting to an impressive miniatures shot, like something out of Thunderbirds. That is how you make a first impression. I thought, could this really be that bad? Yes. Highlight of the story? Yeah, maybe. First 30 seconds. Oh, guys. Gals. Non-binary pals. Doesn't look like I'm going to be a contrarian on this one because the story's reputation? Yeah, spot on. But I didn't immediately start thinking that way, alright? Initially, I paid attention, I kept taking notes, so let me just quickly go over some of them before we get to the fun stuff. So, when we catch up with the Doctor and co, he's in the middle of a conversation with Turlough, discussing how the kid no longer wishes to return home. As I expected, no direct consequences of running away from Gallifrey at the end of the last episode. Wait a second, rewind. Turlough doesn't want to go home anymore? I thought it was Tegan who was flip-flopping between wanting to stay or go. who's staying and who's leaving? Haven't we already done all this before? Which companion was it again where it seemed their entire character revolved around wanting the Doctor to take them home and then occasionally changing their minds? Was it Edric? Was it Tegan? Was it Belinda? Is this all a deliberate callback to Ian and Barbara? I don't care. My inability to keep track of companion motivations is a clear display of my apathy towards this era of the show. Or perhaps just an example of subpar writing, who's to say? One thing I finally have to admit to myself, I just don't give a crap about these recent companions. I would cut Edric some slack from time to time, and I learnt to appreciate Nyssa enough, but the last companion I truly cared about, and even liked, was probably Romana. I miss K9. I just don't care for Turlo or Tegan. Ah well, more on that in a future video probably. Please don't hate me. One thing that caught me off guard during their console room conversation was this line.
It's my own fault. I should have changed it for Type 57 while I had the chance.
Did the Doctor just insinuate that he would have swapped his TARDIS for a new one while he was on Gallifrey and the Five Doctors? I might just be reading into a throwaway line a bit too much, but how else would you interpret what he just said? Doctor, would you really throw away all those memories, all your possessions, and Chameleon, and just start scratch with a new model? I know this was before concepts like growing a TARDIS on Gallifrey were conceived, but even before the TARDIS having some form of sentient consciousness was confirmed, it still has a personality of sorts. At the very least it has character, is a character, I'd argue. You wouldn't really swap that out for a new shiny model, would you, Doc? He showed more emotion over a sonic screwdriver blowing up. Enough overanalyzing. It's a dumb line, let's just leave it at that. Alright, is that enough observational insight for you? Because I'm ready for a good chuckle. This serial is goofy. And not necessarily in the charming way, where it's unintentionally goofy, despite the creatives clearly trying to be earnest. No, this one just didn't finish baking in the oven before being served. You want to talk about subpar special effects? What special effects? I have never seen two groups of characters stand mere feet apart, pointing weapons at each other, making absolutely no attempts to be convincing whatsoever, while sci-fi gunfire sound effects play. Don't get me wrong, there's the odd instance here and there throughout Classic Who, but for the most part, actors will ham it up a bit, move around, you know, put in the bare minimum effort to make it believable. And if it was real Earth weaponry, then you might even get a muzzle flash and some smoke. But not here. If you're lucky, you'll get a barely noticeable red glow on the end of your hairdryer. This serial is in desperate need of that modern updated CGI special effects treatment. Going back to what I was saying earlier, the whole thing just needs more time in the oven. What really did it for me was this colossal creature breaking down this heavily fortified steel door in complete silence. No sound effects, just ugh. Well, it was that, or two guards patrolling down a corridor, walking right past the Doctor, crouched over an unconscious body, caught red-handed, and then just stroll on by like peripheral vision's not a thing. Then I finally put my notes away and settled in for the ride. Warriors from the Deep might be good for a laugh if you're watching it with a group of friends who all know what they're in for. If it wasn't so boring. All in good fun, of course. Chuckle along at all the elements that just don't work. I couldn't help but laugh out loud a couple of times at some of the apparent acting, or allegedly directing, choices. He's not here. Let's go. Oh, this polystyrene is so heavy.
It seems to be a ship of some kind.
Brilliant observation, Turlo. You're a credit to the team. Or how about the one that gave me the biggest laugh, where after narrowly escaping capture by closing a door behind them, you can hear this gentle banging, more like a polite knocking on the door. So in your head you're thinking, okay, this is just a very lazy way of them implying that they're trying to break the door down. But then it literally cuts to the other side, and there is a guy just going, bonk, 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 like, what? Did none of the actors care? Or was it all the director's fault? Both. I mean, when one person does the whole fake lay down and die thing, that's bad enough. But we've come to expect that in old media. Movies get away with it. But when you get a group of 4 people all doing the whole putting their arms out and slowly lowering themselves to the ground because they just died thing, it's priceless. Oh boy, there's still so much to love. Like, bubble wrap bed covers. I mean, why not? They look sci-fi enough, right? The Silurians, fish people, whatever, I don't care anymore. They really didn't need blinking red lights on their forehead to indicate when they're talking. Like, we get it, rubber masks can't articulate, but that's never stopped Doctor Who villains before. Makes him look like a cheap $2 shop bootleg toy. Oh man, remember the $2 shop? Loose change buys a lot at the $2 shop. If it was around today, it'd be called the $10 shop. Sorry for getting distracted, it's just what this story's done to me. And who could forget the elephant in the room, the Micra. I'll admit, when I very first saw it, I thought it had a really cool design and was impressed that they managed to create such an impressive physical costume. Like something that wouldn't look too out of place in one of those very low-budget kaiju films of the era. Again, this was the first impression I had. Obviously, it would be let down by the lack of a moving mouth and blinking eyes. But again, this is classic Doctor Who. That's par for the course. And then it started moving. And oh my goodness, was there no direction given on set to the actor in the suit? Just blindly stumbling about, flailing its arms around despite its whole gimmick being the fact that if it touches you, you die. Somehow. Probably electrocution. So why is it that it's throwing hands in some shots, randomly punching people? And then I noticed it had a backside. An entire second half to the costume that was clearly some other poor soul crouched down into the creature's behind like some abomination attempt at a Chinese dragon. With the tiniest bit of fabric draped over the front and back half, barely concealing the fact that it's 2 people in one costume. I don't even think there was enough material to go all the way around and under it, so the creature probably doesn't even have a stomach. You didn't need the back half. Just have one person in like a little kaiju suit, you know, flailing its arms around. You didn't have to have someone walking behind it like, that's it. I can't do this anymore. This serial is the 80s equivalent of The Mutants. A story that's a real mixed bag. Some good, some bad, but whereas The Mutants had such an off-the-wall, insane ending that went on to become one of the most memorably bonkers moments in all of classic Doctor Who for me, right up there with the 4th Doctor blowing the creature from the pit, Warriors from the Deep nearly put me to sleep. There was a solid 37-minute period in the middle where I was thoroughly entertained by all the terrible moments, barely keeping up the story. But when I paused to write something in my notes, I saw we were only partway through episode 3. Seriously? The narrative feels like it's coming to its natural conclusion. What do you mean we have a whole nother episode to get through? It could have easily wrapped up a few minutes into the final episode, but no, gonna drag it on even more. I'm losing my voice. Let me tell you, viewer, I haven't had a daytime nap in months. I've been really good with my sleep schedule. Watching this almost put me to sleep. It took me back to the early days of this review series where I would sit down on my day off ready to watch an entire serial of Doctor Who and... Sure, my life was kind of falling apart around me at the time, so it's kind of understandable, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not saying it's objectively bad. I'm not saying it's objectively boring. I am saying that I don't think it's very good. It has more shortcomings than positive things going for it. And despite the narrative seemingly trying to have something of substance to say right at the very end, it's kind of hollow and empty when it's literally the last line of dialogue 3 seconds before the credits. Even now, while I'm desperately trying to think of more positive things to say about it, I'm met with more questions like, what was the deal with the spaceship at the start? It was so tangentially related to anything else that happened. I had several fun moments laughing along with it, so I appreciate it for that. But honestly, going forward, I'm pretty sure the only thing I'm going to remember from Warriors of the Deep is the aesthetic. Goofy aliens walking around a pristine white background in this underwater research facility. That or Tegan's abhorrent fashion sense. And one final note before I go, Again with the gory, oozing alien blood. Just like the Visitation, Arc of Infinity, and the Mara all over again. It doesn't bother me personally, but it is pretty gross. I would not recommend watching while eating. Although it does make me a bit apprehensive going forward, because I will always remember that comment that Andrew Bowman left under one of my previous reviews that said that the show is going to get a bit more visceral and gruesome going forward. I'm like, really? Doctor Who? That's weird. Thank you so much for watching. I'm off to sleep. See you next week for The Awakening. Ha 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 ha.